just before we probably focus on another question, we're going to just look at some predictions from these 60 CRE leaders. Home working is the shift. Home working liberates so many choices to the way that we choose to occupy space and take space. And it almost seems trite to go into the reasons why it hasn't happened before. I mean, there were concerns around the technology. Well, that's worked, apart from Matt dropping off the call earlier. Technology works, and you can dial in remotely and you can engage with people. And that was hitherto thought impractical and wouldn't work. You couldn't sell remotely when that's proven not to work. There are challenges about bringing a team together, but by and large, home working has produced mass adoption. 90% of people around the world have been home working, and it's functioned. Office portfolios, therefore, you have to start digging in there. Why do we need it? What is the real reason behind it? And not just a simple why, but the metrics. How do we measure success? And we're going to go into this later. What metrics should you be looking at way beyond the per square foot pound sign? This is about value back to the business, around productivity, about understanding staff wellness, about how clients interact with your space. That's when the office becomes really significant. Flexibility, obviously, we are to a degree biased, but we've been seeing this now for 20 years since Instant came into inception. WeWork has driven a huge amount of publicity, some good, some bad, around flexible workspace. But the reality is, for many companies, they are adopting more and more flex space. They're taking serviced offices here and there, taking co-working memberships. And again, that liberates their workforce. And what a lot of CFOs and CRE, heads of CRE found is the staff, sales staff or project managers were going out and procuring space just on their own because it fitted their business needs. They didn't wait for the CRE stamp of approval. They simply said, we need space, we need 20 seats for a project and we need it now. And the market interface really provides it simply. So I'm going to go and buy it. I'll get sign off later. So that's kind of undone this whole process that CRE moves slowly and you have to sign a lease and it takes 9 months to deliver. You can go out and buy five desks in WeWork or IWG or the office group, and they'll be of a great quality, and you'll bring your project team together in front of the client. Similarly, for BCP space, I don't know how relevant this is for everyone on the call, but for some of my friends who work at Nomura Bank, they came out of the city from Canary Wharf. They all went down to Farnham to work in a huge BCP centre, which had been mothballed for the last 10 years. They only worked there for 3 days before suddenly they realised they had to pack up and go home. So that great centre, which they'd had prepped for 10 years, a huge cost and expense on Farnham High Street, was suddenly redundant because the virus meant they couldn't go there anyway. So BCP now means, well, we'll simply work from home or we'll use flex space. We don't need to hold another asset on a regulatory basis purely for risk's sake. And technology. So we touched upon it here, but technology doesn't just mean Zoom and everything else. Businesses are going to become a lot more aggressive in how they monitor the successful use of space. So there are famous examples of, say, some of the offices around the South Bank, huge leases. IBM's lease on the South Bank was signed at massive expense for a very long period of time, as were many of the others. But we know, because we've seen the stats, some of the staff adoption rates, they were only 45% utilized on a weekday. And that is some of the most expensive riverside real estate in the world, and they couldn't fill it with staff until IBM tore up the rule sheet and said, this is ridiculous. It's a great flagship building. We love being here. Staff aren't using it. We can't possibly justify the cost. But they only got that realization when they had a chance to dig into the numbers properly. And the numbers require real commonalities between your technology team, your HR team, and your real estate team. And it's only when you have that proper market view with all three, and you can properly understand how your teams are using that space, can you really make the right conclusion about how you judge workspace success going forward. So, and on that last point, James, I should probably bring you in again. We see this so often with our clients. They've got to get their head around the real cost of real estate rather than that pound per square foot, right?
That's exactly right. So the headline cost per desk becomes irrelevant if you've obviously got only 50% occupancy. And I think the other factor from a finance perspective that we've not talked about yet is also the gearing on the balance sheet, with IFRS 16 bringing in the need to capitalise leases and UK IFRS kind of following in behind. There is an opportunity here where many companies' profitability is going to be struggling in an economic environment, coming out of COVID. The ability to reduce gearing by taking shorter term leases and adding more flexibility to the portfolio is another trend that CFOs will be wanting to take advantage of. And the very short term flex that John has been talking about, clearly under IFRS 16, if you're less than 12-month license commitment on a serviced office, then you don't have to capitalise that at all. So there's a real opportunity here to kind of reshape the look of the balance sheet, which clearly with many companies looking for additional lending or financial support through this crisis, that will support that refinancing process.